Well, Max morning, everyone. My name is Chris Jingra. I'm a Crown Diamond with Max International. And the purpose of this training is to give you an important training segment in reference to following up, which is part of the Success Cycle series. So let's get started. Something that's very, very important right now, and keep in mind as you are working in duplicating your business. Very important thing that we teach is prospecting, right? And these are part of the segment. You can go back to the Success Cycle series. Feel free to go to Active Team Training, and then from there, I'll point you right to the YouTube channel so you can start kind of revisiting these trainings if you haven't gone through them. And you'll see the prospecting training with other trainings that are before that. I'm just following up from the prospecting aspect is the important modules that establish trust with your prospects, which follows with the invitation and then following up. Now, keep in mind, not because we're telling you to learn the prospecting aspect and inviting aspect separately that they're separate. Sometimes it could be part of the same, within the same conversation. But generally, when you speak to strangers or people that you're building a relationship with, there's a process. And the process begins with that relationship aspect. And that's the initiation, right? That's where we call the prospecting aspect. And then we get into the invitation when we see there's an interest, there's a genuine interest in wanting to follow through and getting more information. That's when we invite them to either try the product, watch a video, or come and see a virtual presentation, or maybe eventually very soon a hotel presentation. This is recorded post-COVID, right? So we understand the situation. And from the invitation, then we are follow through with the following up. And in fact, following up is a very, very important aspect of your business. I'll cover that in the training, but just as an overview, 90% of your income is generated because of the follow-up process. So again, the purpose in following up is to optimize your efforts and be efficient in your steps towards getting someone interested to consume the product or become an associate. And the Pareto Principles is to understand that really 80% of your work should be doing the building activities, right? Which is the inviting, the prospecting, let me rephrase that, the prospecting, the inviting, and the following up, right? And of course, the third party validation. This is what we call the money making activities. That should be 80% of your time. 20% should be about maintaining your team, supporting your team. Now, as you start growing, if you get into the tens of thousands of people in your business, then that may shift a little bit. But for most of you, you're not there yet. So you really need to concentrate and focus your effort on the building activities, the money-making activities, I like to call it too. So keep that in mind. So the point here as we move forward, as we stated earlier, is the fortune is in the follow-up. Do not underestimate that. It is very, very important. And I'm going to do my best here to give you some constructive information for you to be able to move forward and get a full understanding of how did Tammy and I were able to get to Crown Diamond from absolutely nothing. We started just like you with our position, one person on your right, one person on your left, and we build it from scratch. And this is the reason why we can teach you what we've done, simply because we've done it and we've reached a rank all the way up to Crown Diamond. So in moving forward, understand that 80% of sales requires 5 follow-ups after the initial contact. Think about it. And you can see here that 44% of salespeople, we're generally in prospecting, gives up after one time. Do you understand? And this is one of the reasons why a lot of folks tend to not get the results they're looking for. 44% stop following up after one rejection, right? And we'll talk about this. 22% stop following up after 2 rejections. And 14% stop following up after 3 rejections. And 12% stop following up after 4 rejections. And only 8% do follow up after 5 times. So it falls within the norm of the 10%. Why do we always say, well, the 10% earns, more money than the 80% put together? That's the reason why, folks. It's not about the rich have it all and take advantage of the poor. It doesn't work that way. There's something that the successful folks are doing, and really it comes down to they don't give up. And that's what we're telling you here. Don't give up. Stay the course. Keep moving forward. Don't get distracted by the little things that could get in the way of the bigger things for you. So in moving forward, there's many ways to follow up, right? There's the third-party calls. We can do WhatsApp calls. We can do Facebook Messenger calls. I mean, we're going to talk about when we start dealing with third-party credibility with some more examples there. My personal favorite now is, online presentations. Why is that? Well, simply because when you do an online presentation, you're able to get people's facial expressions, which really communicates a lot of information. Where I find, the old way of using a cell phone, and not that it's not applicable today, but today, because of post-COVID, people have adjusted to the online way of doing business. And now we're able to communicate as if we're sitting side by side. We just have technology in between us, but we are still able to see each other. And in fact, I'm completely restructuring the way I do business now by setting appointments that will automatically send them a link to connect with me on Zoom that will automatically go to my calendar. I mean, it's amazing, and that's all free. I mean, that's another training here. But folks, there's so much stuff, and what's important here is what's available to you. What's important is that you're in a position to communicate with people, and you're able to understand what is going on in their mind, not just their words, by watching their body language. And that's why I really enjoy Zoom session or whatever online software you might be using. So see, these are obviously some of the approach that we use. And you also need to discipline your disappointments, folks. There are some folks that are they're just missing in action. It's just what they do. It's just how they run their lives. And don't beat yourself up because they don't show up, because it happens to be how they run their lives, right? But it's not always the case. Sometimes you'll have some people that may, the time doesn't coordinate for them, right? You set a time and it doesn't work out, not a problem. And what you need to keep in mind is, and always remember, you are building a relationship with your prospect. So don't get frustrated and become dictative in saying, you know what, I realize you're not interested, you didn't show up for your appointment. Don't do things like that. My recommendation is always be understanding and always leave the door open for another day. I'm telling you, often you leave messages and it's an opportunity to build a relationship with that person, right? Understanding is a big part of doing this business. Very, very, very important. So don't beat yourself up. It's just the way it is. What you need to understand is you need to stay the course, and you follow up in a way that is constructive, that is friendly, that you care. You want to make sure you get the information. You understand? So don't be too hard on yourself when the results are not what you're looking for. So moving forward, the follow-up concept and goals here. Number one is follow-up is doing exactly what you said you are going to do in the invitation process. This is something I cannot stress enough. Professionalism is critical. Never underestimate what someone else may tell you based on your relationship with that person. Oh, it's a friend of mine. He's not going to care. No, don't. Always take your business very, very, very seriously. I cannot stress this enough. Let's try if I can move myself a little bit here so I'm not in the way. There we go. So very important here. Number two is the goal is to always set the next exposure, right? When you are presenting the information to someone and you're clarifying some details, don't expect a decision on a first exposure. It may happen. It happened to me, but not all the time. Often, I need to follow up, and often there's a level of trust and confidence that is established or is being established as you are communicating with that person. And every time you get to another call and do another step forward, you're building that trust in that relationship with the person. Okay, so always prepare the next exposure. What else can you follow up with? If this was the point where they didn't buy the product or they didn't do exactly what you were planning to do, that's okay. That means there's another step that needs to be achieved before they actually get there. Number 3 is, it takes an average of 4 to 6 exposure before people make a decision, and sometimes even more. Just keep in mind, every time you do an exposure of information, and we'll talk about it more in a third-party credibility call, to validate, the information that you share through a third party. Sometimes it'll take time. Okay, but the key here is that you need to be aware of the fact that it's a process, right? And the thing too is, number 4 is condense your exposure for better results. Don't get into too many lengthy, sciencey, detailed numbers that will overwhelm your prospect. I'm telling you, keep it light and keep your exposure short and to the point, right? And I often, if I feel that there's a slightest level of interest there, I often will ask them a question. Are you ready to get started? You feel that you're in a position that you want to start with us? Sometimes people never ask the question, and we'll get into that a little later. And unfortunately, the person was ready to sign up, but there's been so much talk that he's starting to rethinking, do I need the time? Do I have the time? Do I want to do all of this? Right? So just keep that in mind. So our goal is to understand where the interest lies. Okay, this is very, very important. Okay, that's that in their perspective, right? Not what you think they should know, but what is interesting to them and what they need to be able to make an educated decision. Show them how Max can benefit them and their need, the name, and the number, right? So the fact here is you always try to adjust to what they need to hear when they're ready to hear it, right? Show them the sign-up packs. Don't be afraid to talk about the money, because at the end of the day, that's basically how we function, right? Ask them which package would be more suitable for them, right? Because the next time you speak, if they've never heard about the prices, they have no idea of the packages, you might have spent a lot of time, a lot of resources for them to try this and to try that, only to find out that they don't have 2 pennies to rub together. And that happens. And that's okay. And trust me, where there's a will, there's a way. And some people will find a way. But it's good for them to have a good understanding, and don't fear the fact that they may tell you no. It's okay. If they tell you no, you got the information, you got the answer, and you move on to the next person. Now, there's 6 questions to ask on a follow-up that we do recommend. Now, keep in mind that what we're telling you is not written on stone, right? It's our experiences based on our achievements. We're trying to cut the learning curve to facilitate your results. So number 1 is that you can ask us, did you get a chance to watch the video? This is an example where we often, and again, you'll learn that on the prospecting aspect and the inviting aspect, is we've sent them an introductory video for them to look at. Not the full presentation, but just an introductory video to see if there's an interest there. And when you do follow up, the first question is, did you get a chance to watch the video? And I wait for an answer. If they say no, then express the urgency. I say, John, you really should check this out. I mean, this is really, really important, especially today. And simply ask them, when would they have a chance to look at it again, or to look at it for the first time, right? If they say yes, then ask the magic question. So simply ask them, what'd you like best? And the reason why we suggest to start on that note is often if you leave it to them by saying, what did you think? What do you think? If you're talking to someone that tends to have a bit of a negative outlook on life, you'll find that you'll have a lot of negativity to deal and overcome before you can get into the positive aspect of things. But I find that when you ask the person, what did you like best? Well, guess what? They start processing and thinking for themselves, what did I like best? And then you'll find that it might be a little easier for you to move forward, where it could be the product, it could be the money-making aspect of it, it could be both. I mean, it's hard to say, but it's based on their level of interest, right? And that's what you want to follow. And that you'll find that if you follow the level of interest, that the conversation will be easy and it'll be smooth, and you'll find it'll be easier to get people to get them involved with you. 3 is tell them more about that, right? Get them talking about what they desire. So, for example, if they turn around and they're sharing some of the things they like, or even they didn't like, whatever the situation may be, simply tell me more about that and start a conversation. It's amazing how much relationship and trust is established just by having a back and forth conversation and having some commonality in the conversation. It's really amazing. Another thing you can ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you see yourself in getting started? Right off the bat, right? Some people say, hey, I want to start. I really want to get started right now. I'm desperate to get something going. I'm a little bit, aware about my future and so forth. I says, I'm an 8, I'm a 9, I'm a 7. Anything below 7, for me, that's a gauge that gauge me as the fact that they need a bit more information. Doesn't mean that they're not interested. It just means that they need a bit more understanding on the product, the opportunity. They may have a bit of skepticism of the industry or so forth. So it requires some education. But when I've got a 7 and up, often they're not that far. You just need to make sure that you keep establishing the confidence and the trust, and that could be the reason why they're not a 10. And you'll discover in building a conversation with them. Another one, number 5, is it's a good one, is what do you need to know or experience to get you closer to a 10? Okay, so for example, someone is a 6, someone is a 7. Often they're going to tell you, well, I'd like to know more about the product. Do they really work? Right? And that's when they may tell you how they really feel about our industry, about our products and so forth. And that's when you really get into doing the real business. That's where it really begins. Number 6 is, based on what you saw, are you ready to get started? These are questions I often mention. As I mentioned right at the beginning, sometimes they say, I'm a 7. I said, are you in a position to get started? Would you like to get started now? I often do that. And it's fun. I wouldn't say funny. There's a lot of people that are very intuitive and they know what they want out of life. They don't need to be told a lot of stuff, right? You can read between the lines, and you just need to fill in the blanks, and they're ready to move. Others may require, a whole dictionary of details, right? It depends on personality, and that's fine. And that's the fact, is go along with the objections, go along with the comments, again, based on their level of interest. Here are some good qualifying questions that you can use. Number 1 is, hypothetically, how much money would you want to make for this to be worth your time? Right? This is a fair question. And people will sit back and pause and think about it. So it's important that you pause. Give them a chance to process, and don't talk their ears off by trying to convince them on what you feel they should know based on your interpretation of what is important to you. Okay? Let them give you the answer. Example, well, you know what? If I can make $2,000 a month over and above my income, or if I can make just $2,000 a month, I would be very happy with that. Perfect. Now you got some really good basis. And in fact, this actually works right in the foundation of how our compensation plan works, which is our core rank, which is bronze. So $2,000 a month, I mean, that would be a goal and above in our compensation plan rank. So which it gives you an idea of what rank they need to achieve for them to be comfortable. The number will vary from person to person, right? And that way it gives you a bit of an idea of, if you understand a compensation plan, what you need to focus on what rank for them to relate to the decision making and wanting to be part of this business venture. Number 2 is, how many hours are you willing to put into your max business to achieve this goal? All right. This is important because this is not a lottery ticket. This is a legitimate business, and there's some time that needs to be invested to build a successful organization, right? So it's a fair question. Pause. Let them give you an answer. I can put 15 hours a month. 15 hours a week. I can put 10 hours a week, whatever the situation is, and that's totally fine. I'm telling you, there's not right or wrong answer here. What's important that they're willing to commit some time to build their business. How much time are you willing to give to build this up? Right? One of the situations is often people do not have experience in this kind of business, right? And they often want it yesterday. And if it's not happening tomorrow, when I'm done. And you got to be careful with these kind of expectations, because the reality is that the income possibilities are absolutely amazing. But there's a process. And at the beginning, it might be a little bit slow. But some move very fast. But the reality, there's a foundation that needs to be established based on a level of experience. There's people with all different kind of experience in interacting with others, building this kind of business. And there's always a series of weeks and months before things starts taking off. But folks, when it takes off, it could take a life on its own. We're living proof of that, right? In this case, it could be 6 months. Whatever the situation is, they're willing to invest. Some could be more. Some may not have a deadline at all. They understand the process. Number 4, as you've been asking question 1, 2, and 3, you got some information that now you can utilize to create an environment for them to relate to. For example, in this example here is, if I can help you make $2,000 monthly within, with 15 hours commitment weekly, have you stated that would be good for you within at least 6 months, would you be ready to get started right now? You're giving them the concrete steps for them to be able to process and see, yes, these are conditions I'm willing to work with. And then you will find that it might be a lot easier to get them in the system. So if they say yes, stay quiet and get their information and sign them up. Don't try to sell them up on the science of the salgivity, the glutathione, and the whole process of how much you make $40,000 a month and a matching check because you're excited because they said yes. Hold that for later. Because yes, it's a reality because people do it. But for that person right now, is they're accepting the condition that you shared with them, stay within that context and get the information, put them in a system, and then the next step will get them started. If they say no, then simply ask them, do you have any questions? What can I provide to you to help you make an educated decision to want to start this business with us, right? And again, there's no need to be pressure selling here. You're simply asking legitimate question to help them move forward, and that's what's so important in the follow-up process. So follow-ups requires organization. And this is very important. As you build your business, organization is critical. And I find that often people lose a lot of their business because they are not organized in following up on people they spoke to that they forgot about. And these could have been some of the best team members in their organization that unfortunately has never materialized because they were not organized. So we have a track sheet report that you can download from our team support called Active Team Group. When you go to Active Team Group, there's a document section under the resources, and from there is different countries or continents depending on what you're looking at. You would select Canada, USA, you would select English, you would select trainings, and within the training directory you would see a new associate orientation, and within the new associate orientation that's where the documents are there, and I think there's a reference to that a little later on. And if you do have a problem finding these documents, no worries. Simply let the person know that I invited you to watch this training, or simply leave a quick comment on the training segment, and I'll make sure that I post a response for you to be able to find. I may actually send you the link directly for you to download this file. It's not a problem there. Okay. So the fact is, it's also a reminder that 80% of your time should be in the prospecting, inviting, and a follow-up. Very important. These are what we call the money-making activities. And to keep track of these numbers will really help you evaluate your result based on your effort, right? Because often, I get people coming to me and they say, Chris, I'm not getting results I'm looking for. But then when I ask them some legitimate questions on how much time they put into, how many people they spoke to, it's difficult for me to get some straight answers. So how can I give them a straight answer on why they're not getting the results? So these tracker sheets are really helpful, not just for you, but for the person that may be mentoring you and building your business. So the assignment here is, number one is the follow-up 80-20 rule, everyday prospecting, inviting, follow-up. So it's important that on a daily basis, you prospect, you invite, and you follow up. Okay? These are the activities. These are the things that you need to do to have success in this kind of business. Number two is set your daily follow-up goals. We're talking about the follow-up process here, right? You look at all the people you spoke to. You got your list. You got the list of people you've sent information to, and how many people you've sent information to on a daily basis. You should know how many follow-up you should do today or tomorrow or next week, okay, based on the information you told them on when you'd be following up. Number three is, and again, the tracking sheet that we just talked about here, make sure you download it, access it, right? And there's a lot of great information on this document too for you to take access and take advantage of. So that concludes that segment of the training. I hope that I was able to give you some insight for you to move forward on the process of following up. Folks, following up, I find it's one of the most easiest step to do, simply because you're simply catching up what was said previously, and you try to build their interest and answer their questions and move up to the next segment, and again want to do try the product or become an associate and build a team, and who knows, that could create a massive organization. So my name is Chris. I'm a Crown Diamond with Max International. It was a pleasure to share with you, and I look forward to our next encounter. Bye for now.